There are big upgrades for the top teams as the development war heats up. Haas is on the verge of signing Ocon, and Zach Brown is eagerly awaiting Red Bull downfall. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Ahead of two crucial races, Daniel Ricciardo is seemingly okay with the speculation about his future, as he tends to have a decent weekend when people talk about him. Ricciardo is no stranger to criticism, the honey badger having dealt with that during his time with McLaren, so today it's just more of the same. Retained by VCarb in the hope that he could put pressure on Sergio Perez for the Red Bull seat, Ricciardo's run of 5 races outside of the points at the very beginning of the season put paid to that promotion. Finding a bit of form with a P4 at the Miami Sprint and following that up with top 10 results in the Canadian and Austrian Grand Prix, the headlines did a U-turn from Daniel Ricciardo to be dropped after the summer break, to Daniel Ricciardo to replace Sergio Perez after the summer break. But as the pendulum swung, a lackluster showing at the British Grand Prix has led to calls for Red Bull to put reserve driver Liam Lawson in the RB20, boot Perez out of Formula 1, and retain Ricciardo at VCarb, but only until the end of the season. Ricciardo and Perez are facing 2 crunch races, Hungary and Spa, with Red Bull set to decide not only their 2025 driver lineup during the summer break, but also decide who will be in the cars when F1 returns with the Dutch Grand Prix. Media understands there are clauses in Perez's contract that allow Red Bull to make changes if they so wish, based on his deficit to Verstappen, which cannot be more than 100 points after Spa. Today, that's 137. Both drivers are set to be the subject of much speculation over the next 2 weeks, but Ricciardo says bring it on, as it seems to inspire his on-track results. Probably the thing I was certainly lacking for most of the season so far was to string a few decent results together, he said as per the official F1 website. But yeah, I don't know. It feels like when we have a media briefing and they're like, yeah, a few people are saying things about you, I tend to have a decent weekend. Maybe some of it's good. Ricciardo insists he is making progress with his 2 top 10 results in the last 4 races. He, however, sits on 11 points compared to his teammate Yuki Tsunoda's 20. I know what's required and I'm finally getting a little bit of momentum, said the 35-year-old. Probably what I envisioned I should have maybe had all season so far. It was a little bit tougher to get that going. But now try to keep it going. I feel quite good in the car. As for what comes next, should the 8-time Grand Prix winner lose his VCarb seat, Ricciardo told the media that he not looking at other teams. Not to be stubborn or arrogant about it, but I'm not looking anywhere else, he said. I said I really do enjoy being back in the Red Bull family. I weirdly do enjoy sometimes a little bit of the pokes from helmet, because I think it could also be a way to get me a little bit fired up and try to get the best out of me. Haas have announced that they have extended their technical partnership with Ferrari until the end of the F1 2028 season. Haas have held a close technical partnership with Ferrari since their F1 entry in 2016, with the unique arrangement allowing the American team to run as many Ferrari-built parts as is allowed under F1's regulations. Reports last week had suggested the team, who also received technical assistance from Italian company Dallara, were considering joining forces with Toyota, the Japanese manufacturer who last competed in F1 in 2009. However, Haas announced on Tuesday that the team will continue to work closely with Ferrari after the major F1 2026 regulations, featuring sweeping changes to both the chassis and engine rules, come into effect. Ayao Komatsu, the Haas team principal, said, "I'm thrilled to extend our relationship with Scuderia Ferrari until 2028. As an organization, we've only ever raced with Ferrari power units, and to have that continued stability moving into the next set of power unit regulations is a key part of our ongoing development. The relationship with Scuderia Ferrari has always been a special one to us. They were instrumental in the genesis of the program back in the early days and have continued to be a valuable technical partner to us throughout the past 9 seasons. I'm delighted we now have more seasons ahead, and my thanks go to Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur and many others at Scuderia Ferrari for continuing to show faith in our project." This announcement is just another example of the long-term ambition of MoneyGram Haas F1 team. Our investment and growth in the sport continues. Having finished bottom of the Constructors' Championship twice in the last 3 seasons, Haas have emerged as the surprise package of the F1 2024 campaign and currently hold 7th place in the Constructors' standings ahead of this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest. Haas's score of 27 points sees them sit 18 points ahead of 8th-placed Alpine and 4 shy of 6th-placed V-Carb, the Red Bull Junior team. Lead driver Nico Hülkenberg continued Haas's fine start to the season at the recent British Grand Prix at Silverstone, where the veteran recorded his second successive 6th-placed finish. Haas announced over the British GP weekend that highly rated Ferrari junior Oliver Bearman will replace Sauber Audi-bound Hülkenberg for F1 2025, with the identity of Bearman's teammate yet to be confirmed. If confirmed, Ocon's arrival would likely signal the end of the Grand Prix career of Kevin Magnussen, who has spent 7 of his 9 full seasons in F1 with Haas. The Danish driver has scored just 8 points across the last 2 seasons since returning to the sport with Haas in F1 2022, but recently ended a run of 7 races without scoring in Austria. Recording just 1 top 10 result in a Grand Prix since his Monaco victory, Charles Leclerc is in the midst of a nightmare that is perplexing Damon Hill. Ferrari surprised many when, even before the first race of this championship, the Scuderia locked in their drivers for the foreseeable future. Announcing Leclerc had extended for what he called several more seasons to come, the Scuderia then revealed Lewis Hamilton would be his teammate from 2025. That signaled the end of Carlos Sainz's days in red, and also cemented Leclerc's place as their preferred driver. It is, however, Sainz who is producing the better results at the moment. The faster of the teammates in the early rounds, China to Monaco, then went the way of Leclerc. But now momentum is back with the Spaniard. At a time when McLaren and Mercedes have overhauled the Scuderia on the track, Leclerc has scored just 12 points since his Monaco Grand Prix victory, while Sainz has brought in 38. It's been a nightmare for him since Monaco, isn't it? 1996 world champion Hill said on the F1 Nation podcast, "It's just not gone right at all. Everything. Strategy seems to be out the window." What baffles the Briton about the situation is that while Leclerc is in a nightmare, Sainz is still scoring points. Last time out at the British Grand Prix, an already trying Sunday was made even more so for Leclerc when he was called in for tires as the rain came down, while Sainz refused to pit and stayed out as he felt the conditions weren't tricky enough for slicks. Hill can't understand why Ferrari aren't giving Leclerc better strategy support, especially when he's the driver staying next season. "It's a mystery to me because Carlos seems to come out of the situations making more of what he has than Charles does," he said. "And yet Charles is the guy staying, and I don't understand what is going on in Ferrari. That means that he is not getting good support really from the team, from the strategy and stuff. It seems a little bit muddled, and I don't quite understand why that should be. Whereas Carlos seems to be able to take command of the situation and just say, 'Well, I'm doing this. This is what I want to do.' Maybe that's giving the strategy people confidence, which they don't have with Charles. I'm not saying it's the driver's fault, but I'm saying that if Charles is what you've got, you need to be able to have a better, confident pit wall strategy team there for him." Reportedly forced to roll back on some of their Imola upgrades, Michael Schmidt says Aston Martin were lost and are now slowly working their way back into the mix. Last year's surprise team, when Fernando Alonso raced to 8 podium finishes, Aston Martin arguably punched above their weight before this season dropping back in the midfield. Falling short of the podium in the early rounds with a best showing of P5 at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the team introduced a big upgrade package at Imola that included a new front wing, floor, and bodywork. It fell short of expectations, with Aston Martin reportedly joining a growing list of teams that have seen the return of bouncing. While Ferrari's bouncing has been noted and acknowledged by the team, Aston Martin and V-Carb are also suffering from this phenomenon, says Schmidt. Many upgrades by the F1 teams are not working as intended. The underbody in particular is causing problems. However, team boss Mike Crack insisted they'd get to the bottom of what went wrong, saying, "The upgrades are certainly a step forward and there's no need to roll them off." But scoring just 16 points in the next 4 races, the automotor and sport journalist claims Aston Martin did take steps at the last race at Silverstone. The good news for Aston Martin is performance director Tom McCullough says the data and drivers are telling the team the same thing, which means they know exactly what needs to be done. But it takes time. The drivers love to see their name at the top and score the points. They're very professional, working very hard in the debriefs. The good thing for us is the two of them are saying exactly the same thing about the car. The data's saying the same thing. We can see where we need to improve. It's just heads down now and trying to bring those parts to the car as quickly as possible. Aston Martin has scored 68 points this season to sit P5 in the Constructors' Championship, 37 points ahead of VCarb in the battle to lead F1's midfield. Red Bull and McLaren have received a potential boost ahead of the Hungarian Grand Prix, with Toto Wolff conceding the Mercedes W15 is not yet capable of winning every race. Having gone almost 2 years without a race victory, Mercedes have returned to the winner's circle over recent weeks with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton triumphing in Austria and Britain respectively. It is the first time Mercedes have won consecutive races since the closing weeks of the 2021 season, when Hamilton won 3 in a row in Brazil, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia to set up a last race showdown with Max Verstappen. Despite largely struggling under the ground effect regulations introduced in 2022, Mercedes have started from pole position at the last 2 Hungarian GPs, with Russell and Hamilton on pole in 2022 and 2023 respectively. Although Wolff believes Mercedes now have momentum ahead of the Hungary-Belgium doubleheader, the long-serving team boss is convinced that the W15 is not yet fast enough to compete for victory at every circuit. Yet he has also said that the team will continue to bring upgrades all the way until the summer break, as Mercedes aim to close the gap to Red Bull and McLaren. He said, "We head into the upcoming doubleheader with momentum. We have continued to make progress with the W15 in recent races. That has led to headline results in Austria and Silverstone. However, we know we don't yet have a car that can challenge for victories every weekend. The team is working hard to bring more steps of performance that we hope will enable us to do that. Those efforts will continue over the next 2 races and right up until shutdown." Wolff's comments come after he claimed that Verstappen, the reigning 3-time world champion, should not consider joining Mercedes until the team can prove themselves to be a compelling alternative to current employers Red Bull, with the Silver Arrows still lacking on track. Mercedes are currently searching for Hamilton's successor after the 7-time world champion announced that he will join Ferrari on a multi-year contract from F1 2025, with Wolff previously claiming he would love to sign Verstappen as his replacement. He told media, "We need 2 to crash at the front to win at the moment. I think we still need to look at ourselves and say, what can we do in order to have a car that is able to race with these 2 at the front and do it more regularly? And I think this is a moment where we can say that we can be or harbor, port, or destination for the best drivers, including Max. But we're not there yet, so if I was him, I wouldn't be considering such a move yet." Williams team principal James Vowles admitted Carlos Sainz remains on the team's radar for next season, but that does not mean he will sign for them. Sainz is taking stock of his future options as he prepares to leave Ferrari at the end of the year, with Williams having made the Spanish driver their #1 target to partner Alex Albon next season. But Vowles added the timelines of the 2 parties may not add up as the 29-year-old continues to assess his options. Sainz himself has said the picture surrounding where he moves next has always been complicated, which in part explains why he has not taken a decision yet on where he will go next. For Vowles, however, he remains determined to make Williams a team drivers will want to race for as a priority rather than as a stepping stone to elsewhere, as a key priority of his. "I think we've been fairly forthright and open on who we'd like to sign, but that doesn't mean it will necessarily happen," Vowles told TalkSport. "We know where we place in the grand scheme of things. What I would say is this. What I want is a driver that also wants to be a part of our journey, that wants to really understands what Williams is about, both the old and the new, and wants that to be at the heart of what they're doing driving-wise. And sometimes that doesn't match up. Sometimes it does, but that's really important to me." With that, Vowles was asked if he wants to see Williams as not being a stepping stone team, to which he responded, "Correct. And that's not what I see at all. I left Mercedes to come here. The reason why I did is not because I'm bored of winning, but rather I want to invest in something that's my own, that has my fingerprint on it, and the fingerprint of 1,000 other people working in this organization, and the fingerprint of Alex Albon that would join us on that journey. That's important to me. It's important to him, and I want that to be at the foundation of a decision." On how he gets on with both Sainz and his father, Carlos Sainz Sr., Vowles added he has a solid relationship with them and maintained his priority with Williams is to lay out what the team can offer and what they can provide moving forward. But if they cannot match up on timelines, he admitted the team will find our own pathway with another candidate. "I think in the case of Carlos Sainz Sr. and I have a good relationship," Vowles said. "I like him. He's a multiple world champion. There's every reason behind it. He knows what he's talking about. In the case of Carlos Sainz Jr., I get it. To some extent, his dream was to be in a Ferrari or in a top team. That's not happening, and you need adaptation period to it. My goal behind it is simply to lay it on the table. This is what we can offer. If you want it, great, we're here. And if you don't, not a problem. We're going to find our own pathway through to things. So his timeline might not be the same as my timeline is the best way of putting it. Red Bull's rivals have closed the gap partly due to diminishing returns for the world champs, but come 2026, Zak Brown believes the effect of their early season turmoil will be evident on the track. After 2 years of trying to catch Red Bull, this season McLaren made huge inroads with their Miami Grand Prix upgrade that resulted in a maiden F1 victory for Lando Norris. The team hasn't been able to repeat that feat, but they have recorded 5 runner-up results in the 6 races since, outscoring Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship. However, it's not just McLaren who have taken the fight to Red Bull with Ferrari and Mercedes both winning 2 Grand Prix apiece. This has led to talk of Red Bull being in a genuine title fight, with Brown admitting he's surprised given the state of play at the season-opening Bahrain Grand Prix, where Max Verstappen won by 22s in a Red Bull 1-2. Asked by the media if he was surprised, the McLaren CEO replied, "Yeah, I think all of us are. I think we all went to Bahrain and went, that's the championship. It's going to be an epic. Mercedes seems to be very on the pace now. Ferrari are there or thereabouts not too many races ago when Charles won. So you kind of feel like you've got 4 different teams that are all going to win races in the second half of the year. So pretty awesome. Unfortunate the season didn't start now." It begs the question, what has changed between Bahrain and today that Red Bull are counting the points in the championship? Brown puts that down to Red Bull being quick out of the blocks back in 2022, the first year with the ground effect aerodynamic cars, leaving the Milton Keynes squad with less room to improve compared to their rivals. "It's my opinion as opposed to fact," he explained. "I think they got to kind of terminal velocity, if you'd like, quicker than the rest of us. And there does come a point of diminishing returns as far as just how much you can continue to develop a car. I think credit to them, got there first, and now we're all just caught up, or almost caught up." Pressed on whether Red Bull's early season turmoil had also played a role, Brown, who has had a fair amount to say in the past, having called for greater transparency into the Christian Horner investigation, reckons that impact will only be felt in 2026, especially the loss of Adrian Newey. "I don't think so," he said. "I think the turmoil will have more of a mid to longer term impact. You know Adrian Newey. This car was done last year. What they are racing now was done when everything was fine. I think it's more of 26 when you got a new engine coming, what's going on with the driver front. I think that's where you potentially are going to see the lack of stability that appears to be there maybe come through a little bit. Winning holds things together, and as that becomes more of a challenge for them, I think that's where you might see some more fractures in various relationships inside that camp. Formula One will put new cars and engines on the track in 2026, and it will be the first time in 2 decades that their F1 car won't be spearheaded by design legend Newey, who announced in May he was tired, Forrest Gump tired, and wanted a break. He went on to hint that Red Bull's early season drama also played a role in his decision, saying, "I guess over the winter a little bit, and then as events have unfolded this year, I thought, I am in the very lucky position where I don't need to work to live." Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one.